Hello, welcome to our session today where we're going to talk about customer service case creation triggered by an inbound email.
Thanks to our sponsors here. That's Script Runners, DQ Global, and Proximo 3. Without these sponsors, we won't be able to possibly to do this event.
Yeah, definitely. The other three sponsors that we have for the event, you can see there are Redspire, Agilysys, and Hitachi Solutions. We'd really like to just take a moment to thank them for supporting the community.
Oh, hi. My name is Ajith Madathil. I work with Dynamics 365, SharePoint, and Power Platform. I'm a super user at Power Automate community. Beginning of this month, I have awarded the Microsoft MVP for business applications.
And myself, Iain Connolly, again, same as AJ there, working with Dynamics for many years, to be fair, since about version 4. Also, Microsoft BizApps MVP, and you can get me on social media on Twitter at bearded365guy. Session today, myself and AJ, we're going to do quite a probably laid back session a little bit, take you through building through some flow, etc. But it'll be quite an interactive session between the two of us. We'll show you how to, within Dynamics customer engagement itself, respond to a customer once they've emailed into your business. We'll do this through setup of an Exchange profile, so it can listen to the mailbox, pull an item into a queue when an email is received. We'll then also use Power Automate Flow to respond to that sender by email and send them an attachment from SharePoint.
So a customer sends an email. That email ends up in Dynamics 365. We configured based on a role. The configuration says create a case record. Then we will show you a Power Automate how to configure and send an email back to the customer. Going back to the SharePoint, retrieving the documents, attaching the documents under the email. That's the plan.
Okay, and we're going to do all that within Flow as well, as you're saying there, and we'll use some out-of-the-box case creation, etc. So first off, what we'd like to show you here will be the fact that we have set up this request at SpinHope email within Exchange itself, and that's what it's a shared mailbox. Obviously, we're just going to take that as the inbound email. That's the one that we'll be using to send emails into from an external mailbox as part of the demonstration. And once it comes into this, we'll then set that up within a queue within CRM so that it can get pulled in to that queue.
Yep.
So now that you've seen the way that it's set up within Exchange via that shared mailbox, what I'd like to take a moment is and show you how within CRM or within Microsoft Dynamics Customer Engagement, you have to then set up the mailbox so that it can be attached to the queue and have the listening completed. So we've got already set a moment, I'll just run it through you with you. The mailbox here, where we can see the name of it. We've created the email address of request@spinhope.com.
Yep.
And we can test enable the mailbox, which you need to do first off. You need to be a global administrator to be able to test and enable the mailbox.
Good point.
And once you've done that, you will then be able to see whether it's successful in both these boxes. So we're doing this for incoming email and outbound email, but we're not running it for the appointments, contacts, or task status. We can see here that it was completed just the other day, just yesterday, 8 o'clock. On this part here, we have the server profile as well, which when it's out of the box connected to your Exchange server online, it's very simple to set this up, where if you look at the server profile itself, you're just pointing it to Microsoft Exchange Online, and you can set this as your default if you wish, but it's a really simple setup at that point. Setting this to this inbound emails to server-side sync or email router is where you need to do that to test enable. You can also use a forward mailbox, which would be for a different process if you want to be doing that around receiving emails forwarded to a mailbox with attachments, etc., to pull them into the queue. The email, as you can see here, is regarding something, and this is a queue, which is the request queue. And if we go to that request queue itself, we will be able to see here that, again, the incoming email is this email here. As it's attached to that mailbox, this is the email that it's listening to. Any emails that come into this mailbox, we are converting to all email messages for that mailbox here. It's a public queue. Now, the difference between that you have here is a public or a private queue. A private queue does require members, And even as a system admin, you won't see any items that are in that queue itself when it's private, but as public, anybody who has access to CRM is then able to access that queue. They can see the items in the queue. Even if it's a private queue, you can add items to the queue. You don't need to be a member of a private queue to add items. You just need to be a member to be able to see the items in the queue here. So that's a relatively simple, quick look at the setting up of the mailbox within Exchange, and then within the queue item or within the queue itself and connecting it to a queue.
Fantastic.
So what I'd like to do now is actually send an email to this mailbox so that we can see it coming in. And for that purpose, I have a Gmail account which I've used. I'll just compose a message to it, to response, request, sorry.
Request, yeah.
Yep. And we'll put a subject of inquiry. Love a spell check. I use it too much. Hi. So that message has been sent.
Right. At this stage, we are expecting that email come to CRM. So I'm going to the queue, all items. That's a request queue. Here it is. That's the email which Ian sent earlier. So I'm just going to open that email. As you can see here, it's created a contact at this stage. So that's Ian. And the two is request@spinhub.com. Okay, just going to the contact. So that's a contact CRM created based on the role which we configured. As you can see here, under the timeline activities, it shows the activity as the email is created. Also, you could see from the related activities, if you go here and pick all activities, you can see the email there as well.
And that would obviously show other emails or any other activities, be it phone calls or faxes, letters, or any other custom activities as well, wouldn't it, in that view?
Of course, yeah.
Cool.
So now next, what we need to do here is we need to start building the flow in. Yeah.
Yeah, what we need to do actually is convert the email to an inquiry or to a case. So we need to go to that email as well and then convert that. And that's exactly what you're talking about there. Is that's the point that then the flow that we're going to build will trigger because we want to respond from that inquiry itself.
True, because our flow trigger is going to be when a case is created.
Yes.
Yeah. So we will do that later once we finish the flow build. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Now I'm going to create the flow now. So first I'm going to the solutions. You can create this flow under my flows. So my preference is creating a solution. So click on new solution and just give a solution name then. So this is when a case is created, send initial pack.
And that initial pack, that's going to be the SharePoint pack, just like the initial customer query pack that we're sending out to all customers, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Cool.
And selecting the default publisher. So here I'm going to select Ajith company. It doesn't matter which other publisher you want to select, you can select that. Then create. Okay, let me refresh. It should create that. Yeah. Okay, so next I'm going to click new and say cloud flow. So you can see here there are different type of flows you can create now. So you got the cloud flow here, desktop flow here. That's for the desktop versions. So for this purpose,
desktop version, what do you mean now? Like, what is the desktop version?
That's a Power Automate desktop.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So click on the desktop, sorry, the cloud options here. Okay, and so we need a trigger here. So our trigger is the common data service, the CDS, the new name is called Dataverse. So there are two connectors here. So here I'm going to use the current environment connector, which is the preferred connector now.
Yeah, it's the most recent one that Microsoft released, isn't it? It
Yeah.
automatically maps to the current environment, etc. That's
True.
cool.
Okay, so the first trigger condition is the create, and the table name is going to be case as cases. Yeah. Okay, the scope here I'm going to select organization. Okay, so this stage we set our trigger. So if you want to, there are some good practices you can put here. You can add a comment here. So the comment should say like when a case is created. Also, you could rename this. You can rename this called when a case is created.
And between the two of them, obviously, anybody else that comes along can pick that up and hopefully understand what the steps are about. Obviously, this is a trigger of when the case is created, and the additional comments would give some more information around what your filters are, etc. if you've got filters.
Yeah. Okay. So you know what, where the comment is more useful is sometimes when you use a complex expressions in Flow, you can just put that expression here. So at least more readability there actually under the comment.
That's a good shout, actually. I've got a few
Yeah.
fields, as you say, that are like massive bits of fetch and things like that in it that's filtered lots of link entities. Exactly, a comment there would be great.
That's right. Next, I'm going to use a variable here. Initialize variable. Okay, so remember we need to send an email out back to the customer. So we need a queue. So I'm going to use initialize variable called queue, and that's a string data type. We know our queue name, which is called the request. But for sending out, later on further down the activities, we need the queue ID actually. So for the queue ID, we need to do a list rows next. Okay, that's next. So again, using the same connector. And here we need to pick list rows. And under the list rows, we are looking the queues actually. Here we go, queues. And we need to set the filter now. So setting the filter, we are looking against the name actually. So under the filter query, you can say name equals 2 single quotations. Between that, we need to map our variable name, which is the queue name. Here it is.
Okay, so why are you doing it that way? Why are you not just like picking the queue from somewhere else? Like just a queue name? What is the purpose of this?
You mean why can I hard code that value here?
Yeah. So
okay, so
in hard code it, you need to get the good. If you're having to set the queue further down,
yeah.
What when you're doing it this way, when you initialize a variable and then you're going to list the row and get the queue from that variable name.
Yeah.
What's the purpose there?
Well, there are a couple of things. Is more readability here. There are, so yeah, I'm going to rename this here also like queue name. Request, yeah.
Okay.
And this I'm going to rename here called get queue ID. Okay, so the next step, I need to use the set variable. I'll get back to you, Ian, for a minute. Yeah.
It's fine, actually. I think I know where we're going with it, with the fact that you've changed the names of it. I kind of understand, but yeah, okay. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah. Now we need to set the variable here. So again, variable and set variable here. Here it is. So because remember this is a list rows, it's going to put this in a loop now, Power Automate automatically, because it can return more than one record. But we know in this instance, it's always going to be one record. because we got only one queue name in CRM for that. Okay, so select the variable name, which is the queue, and here we need to select the queue ID. So just filter by queue. As you can see here under the dynamic properties, it will be displayed here, queue unique identifier of the queue. Here it is. So here you can see it's going to apply to each row. So if you're going to use a compose or some output here, we can't reuse that because it's under the scope of the apply to each. So that's the reason we need to declare a variable outside the scope. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, yep.
Okay, so let me save this flow. Okay, so next. Okay, so what we did here is we set up the trigger, then we getting the queue IDs, which we needed for sending the email out. And next we need to get the customer, the contact details. Remember, we need again the common data service, and that's get a new row, actually it's called. Okay, I'll tell you in a minute why we need this. So that is contacts. Okay, and here the item ID. The item ID is the customer value we need. Here it is. So this is the customer value we need for that the contact, because we need the details of the customer later on for setting the contact ID.
Yeah, and that's the customer that's related to the case that we've created, and it's on
Absolutely.
that polymorphic lookup. So and because we know it's related to the contact, we know that that is going to be a contact. So that's where you're getting that from. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly it is in. Yeah. So now the next is we are going to create. Okay, let me rename this again. It's a best practice to rename this again here.
Oh, so, yeah, because if you move on and don't rename it, you never go back. That's always a problem, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Going down and moving forward and just never rename them. So it's always good to rename and add comments as you go, I think.
Yeah, like I'll show you this one here. See here, it says the QID, this probably this one here. So here, see the output here, output of bracket get underscore Q underscore ID. So if I'm going to rename this, you need to make sure this need to be remapped, otherwise it's going to throw an error.
It's a valid point, isn't it? If you go back and rename them as well, sometimes it can cause conflicts further down because you've changed the
reference. Yeah.
Yep, the reference for that dynamic value. Cool.
That's right. So now we got the contact details. So in this case, in the scenario we got, which is the contact is Ian. Ian's email is converted into a case. So the case is attached to the Ian's contact. So that details we want here. So that's what this is going to do. Okay, next we need to create the email now. So for that, again, we can use the same connector and create a new row. Right. So this one is for creating the email message first. Then we need to create the attachment. So first create the email.
And this is the outbound email, isn't it? Obviously, that we're sending out.
That's right, yeah.
From, in this instance, the customer engagement app.
Yeah. And we are going to say email messages here. Here it is. Now, the first we need to set the activity party attribute, which I'm going to set from. And this email, remember, this email is going to go from CRM, so that has to go from a queue. So that's, we need to set the party attribute value is queues, 2 brackets. Inside that we need to have the queue ID, which we already got from the previous step. Here it is.
Yep, and actually, yeah, doing it the way that you've just done that as well, where you've created the queue ID as a variable instead of hard coding it, it does mean that anytime you deploy this flow anywhere else, it'll automatically get that GUID of that queue, because obviously when you create a queue in every other instance, The good is generally different, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good point, Ian. Yeah. Next, again, add a new item, because there's a two we need to configure now. So from we configured, the next is a 2 actually. So that's 2. Then here we know that which contact is going to go to. So that's contacts, 2 brackets, and we can set the customer value ID here from the trigger. So we know that's which customer it is. So that's when a case is created, customer value. Okay, that's going to which customer. Then we can set rest of the options, such as going back to the show advanced options now. Okay, so let's go down. We need to set this email under the case activity. So let's go back and set under the case activity. Here we go. That's regarding the case. So that's again / incidents.
Incidents rather than case.
Yeah, that's the schema name, is it?
Yeah. So it's the entity set name that you need to put in there as well, and the table name for what's referred to in the UI as cases is incidents.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's regarding cases, that is / incidents. And again, our trigger is coming from the case. So we know the case ID. So all I need is here filter by case. And then it shows when a case is created, case unique identifier of the case. Here it is. Yeah. So that's that done. Then going down, let's see what else we need to set. It's got a lot of regarding there. Okay. Subject. So we're going to say initial pack. Did I miss anything, Ian? It's a good description I missed, is it?
Yeah, the description would be the part of it, the part that makes up the body of the email itself, the message you want to send back to as a response. So obviously you can have a very generic hi there, XYZ, or you can start, as you may do, map in like the contact's first name or something like that to make it more personable.
That's true. Yeah. Of course, you can map here like hi with the first name, which is from the get contact from our previous step.
Yep.
Space. You can use the surname also there, or the last name. Here it is, the last name from the get contact.
Or you could use full name as another field that's there that gets populated with.
Of course, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's lots of different ways to do the same thing.
Yeah. Okay, so we set the body, we set the subject, we set the regarding ID of the email. So that means once this email goes out, it will be attached under the case record as an activity.
Yeah.
And we set the activity parties. One is the from, and next is the to actually. Yeah. If you want to send it to multiple, all you need is click on another add item. So you can set more.
As well, you can add like a BCC or a CC and things like that as well. So you can do the same. You can build email in the same way that you can as if it's within Outlook or something.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, Ian, do you want to take this session and build the next part of the flow?
That's fine. I'll certainly take over from here.
Cheers, Ian.
So what we're going to look at now is actually retrieving the SharePoint document and the metadata and the actual body of the SharePoint document itself. So we've got a SharePoint site here already set up with this case initial pack document. At the moment, it just contains some lorem ipsum text. But we've got it stored in here. You can see it's a demo case doc, and it's just that file there. So the first thing I'll do is I will go and retrieve the file metadata. I'll use the SharePoint connector here.
Yep.
And I will retrieve it by the path because I know where it is and I know it's the same document we're going to send out every time. Obviously, I just can't find the one I'm looking for just now. because that's what happens. Get file data, metadata.
Using path, yeah, that's all.
And we will go to the
root of the SharePoint,
which is
spin up SharePoint.com. If you go down,
which one are we at? This one here.
Yes, that's
Cool.
a collection name,
And from here, we will navigate out to the demo case document folder and the initial pack itself.
Fantastic.
We'll obviously get the metadata.
Yeah.
And then to be able to attach it as an email or to an email, I also need to get the actual body of it, not just the metadata itself. So again, if we use SharePoint connector.
Yeah, that's a file content, is it? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, to get the file content. So we need to get file content. Again, we'll do it by path. You've got the get file content, but that would be like going and getting a list and doing some filters, which we don't really want to be doing at this point. So because we know exactly where it is, and again, it's the same file. So if I choose
Absolutely,
the main collection, and from here we can go demo case.doc and the initial pack. I'll save that at this point just because I like to save things more than I should do. I've lost too many things and everything else there. So next time we're going to do is actually then start creating the attachment itself. Obviously, we've got the email message here that AJ created for us. And the next thing would be, as I say, creating the attachment. So go for a new step. I'll zoom in again. And I'm going to use the Common Data Service current environment. Previously, within Flow as well, there was used to have to use the other connector at this point as well to be able to create the activity MIME record to then update it in the next step. But recently, we've discovered a way in where we can actually just create the activity MIME record and attach everything to it there itself. So if I search here for the create a row first off is the step that I want to do.
Yep.
And then go into your search for attachments. I can spell it right. So you'll see here, actually, I'm using the experimental mode within Flow as well as here. And it's quite good in this example because it allows me to search here rather than just searching within the table name there. And you can see both options here. And I know that what I want to make is an activity MIME attachment for this point because that's actually what contains the attachment to the email itself, the body of it, etc.
So Ian, to turn on the experimental features, you need to go to the settings on the right-hand corner, is it?
Exactly that, yep. So in the settings, view power automate settings here, and experimental features are here. You can turn them on and off.
Fantastic.
When you turn them on, this is one of the reasons why I like to save my flows, etc. Because if I turn it on, the whole page refreshes, and if you've not saved anything, you would lose it.
Thank you. Yep.
Yeah. So in here, what we want to do is obviously set the attachment, and it's, as you can see, it's a required field. But right now, I don't have an attachment in the system because the attachment's up in SharePoint. So I'm going to basically kind of fudge the system a little bit in this way and put in a holding character more than anything else of just 2 dashes so that it will come up as the undefined in the attachment and allow me to then actually save this step.
Yep.
And here, the entity that we want isn't actually either of these because it'll error at this point. So I'm going to add a custom item and just type email. And I want it to be attached to the email message. So we'll use a bit of dynamic content for that. Email message. And that'll put the GUID in. But like with the previous steps, we will need to let it know using the entity set name that it's an email that we're looking to attach. So we'll have emails, which is the entity set name at this point.
So the syntax is /emails, 2 brackets. That's the syntax, is it?
Yeah, force a habit. I'm not sure you need the /, but definitely.
I always use that, yeah.
Yeah, it's just force a habit. It's the way that we know how to do it, and it works for us at that point. But certainly that is it there. The body, I can map here, and I can just get the actual file content.
Yep.
It's the body, isn't it?
I think if you search the content, you should be able to get it.
Yeah. So it's this body here.
Yeah.
However, even as that message was saying to us there, that stores it from blob storage, which just won't attach. So we actually need to do a little bit of a conversion first off and convert it to base 64.
Absolutely.
So to do that, we'll go for an expression first off, and we'll do base 64.
Yeah.
And put in our brackets, and then from here we can map the file content body. See there, so we'll click off, and we'll see it shows us an expression. The file name I'm going to put as, the file name I'm going to put as a display name, again, is a dynamic content.
Yep.
And the MIME type, in this instance, as it comes from SharePoint, it's actually media type. And subject, we'll just add this as a case initial pack.
So that is for creating under the CRM files and not title, I think, is it?
I think it is, yeah. I think that sounds like a good certainly there, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the subject you just typed. That's the title of the notes, I think.
And I will rename this as well at that point. So it's not just creating a new row, it's creating an activity. MIME. That's attaching to the previous email that AJ just raised there. Now, that looks all good at that point, isn't it? You've created the email and you've created the attachment. One last thing left to do, and what is that?
So the next thing we need to do here is the update a row.
No, wait, actually, we don't need to update anything at this point. What we need to do is actually send the email.
Oh, sorry, yeah, that's for the old connector.
Yeah, exactly. You're
right.
reading with the old way, because previously you'd have to create it and then you would have to update.
Yeah, update the email message. Yeah.
Yeah. So
now next we need is the perform bound.
Yep, perform a bound action, exactly that. And the bound action is a send email action, because if you just left it at that point within the dataverse, the email would be created.
So the bound action means in CRM means that is bound to a particular one entity, which is not a global action. So that's the reason if you're using a bound action step, you need to specify the entity name. Whereas if you go into the unbound one, you don't need, there is no option to select which entity it is. That's
exactly
the difference.
Yeah, and as we can see, it's loading here. It is filtering for the bound actions to the email messages.
True.
While that's loading, I will just map in the email message. And we don't need to declare the set name at this point because it knows there is an email message. So we should have here send email. And there's one last bit that we need to do here, and it's just rendering for it just now, hopefully, and that is to change the issue send to yes.
Yeah.
True.
Quite a crucial point, because otherwise it won't send the email out.
Yep. Okay, so following a refresh of the page there, we now have the issue send appearing, so we can set this to yes. And as AJ just said, if we do not do this, even though we performed the action, it won't actually do the handoff to Exchange. So we'll just save that record there.
Yep.
I won't test it at the moment because obviously we've got the case creation, and that's the part that AJ will now take you through himself about converting the queue item into a case.
Okay, now we got our flow ready and coming back to CRM. So let's go back to the queues. So as we can see here, the email is here.
Yep.
Open the email. And we need to convert this into a case. So the plan is once it convert this into a case, the flow should trigger, get the right documents from SharePoint and send the email out. And that email should attach under the case. Okay. So to convert the email to case, you need to click this options, convert to, then case. That's it.
And that's just using the out the box. As you say, you get that option there, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
See what you want to do. Cool.
And convert. Yeah. Okay, this stage, CRM converted that email to a case now. As you can see here, this is the case, and under the activities, it's showing the email as well.
Yeah. Cool. That's
Okay.
the email.
Yeah. Now let's go back to the flow now and see our flow. Okay, so switching back to the flow. When a case is created, that's a solution. Okay, our flow is failed. That's fine. We can find out why it's failed. Let's go back and find out. It says resource not found for the segment contact. So that's for creating the email. So let's go back to create email message. Okay, so this contact is the customer ID value.
The entity set name is actually missing an S there. Again, it's that whole part where it needs the plural, so it's contacts.
Ah, good spot, Ian. Yeah. Okay.
And that's the whole thing there, isn't it? Such a small mistake can have such a big impact on the flow if we hadn't spotted that.
True. So now we can resubmit this. We don't need to go back and convert that case again because the case is already converted. So what the flow platform allows is you can go back to the failed flow and there is a resubmit button here. So if I click on resubmit, that should rerun the flow again using the same trigger. Here we go, flow ran successfully. So that means if I go back to the case entity and refresh this screen now, you should be able to see the email going out with that attachment. Let's see. So I'm refreshing the screen now.
In the moment of truth, and there.
Hey, here it is with the initial pack. So let's open that email. Okay. And the attachment here. Here we go, that's downloaded. And that's the exact content which Ian uploaded earlier. So we got the email now. Again, going back. So let's go back to the Power Automate and see the triggers as well. Just investigate the triggers. So if something goes wrong, you can always go back to the run history and click on the relevant steps. You can get the details from relevant steps, what are the values it's returning, and that's the way you can debug also. And now back to the dynamic side, it created the case, it sends the email out. Is anything else, Ian, you need to cover?
So yeah, if I bring in my email here, we can see actually that I've received the email that we've sent out and the attachment with that lorem ipsum text. So that's all been there, and that's really it all the way through from, so say, creating the inbound email to then getting that response with some text pack. That text pack could be anything, and obviously you can tailor that further within your own application or your own flow if you want, rather than having that one sort of document going back. So I'd really like to thank you for your time. Anything from yourself there, AJ?
Yeah, there is one change we need to do. If you go back to that flow, please, we don't need that get contact step we added. So we got the contact ID as activity party ID. So we don't need that.
This part here where we're talking about this, get the contacts, we can remove that out. You're right, we don't actually use that within the flow, so just like
we don't need that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.